Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I can't wait to get into this conversation with my guest today, Aurora Winter, just because we have so many great conversations just when we're chatting. So I can't wait to share one with the audience and the rest of the world. Before we dive into everything, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Oh, thanks for that introduction, Erin. I'm so excited to talk to you too. We've been talking offline and we've got so much in common. So my goal for this call is that the listeners will be able to turn their words into wealth. That's what we'll have some tips about neuroscience and communication and entrepreneurship that will be very helpful. My background is I'm a successful serial entrepreneur. I've launched multiple seven-figure businesses. And right now, my main focus is Same Page Publishing, where we help experts and leaders and entrepreneurs create best-selling, award-winning books that make a difference and build their businesses.
Nice. I love it. Before we dive into the topic, I think one of the things that draws me to you, because I know a lot of book people. I think for a business, I think it's a huge credential, a huge way to get your message out. There's something about a book that all my YouTube videos in the universe would never equate to. But one of the things I really appreciate is right in your about me sentence is it's not just a fancy business card, right? It's a value. If you're going to do this, let's be of value, be of service, make it worthwhile, not just for your own business building, but useful for people.
Exactly. And it can really help you or help the author become more clear on their message. The process of creating a book forces you, invites you, challenges you to distill your message. And that is so valuable because all the businesses that I have launched, they're in completely different industries: yacht sales, television business, coach training, publishing. But the common denominator was my words launched those businesses. So the right words at the right time to the right people can change your life and change your business. So I love to encourage people to devote time to learning how to communicate your message effectively.
100%. One of the best compliments that I've ever received, or one that I was so proud of, was in the communications class in my MBA program. Because the bottom line he said to me at the end of the semester or whatever, quarter, however it was, it's been a hot minute. I don't remember the dates, but I remember what he said was, I love your ability to communicate with intent.
Wow, that is a nice compliment.
I was right. I mean, to me, and this is why I'm excited about this conversation, because I'm really well versed in the neuroscience of limiting beliefs. I call it give yourself a break, but don't let yourself off the hook. What we're all up against is we're trying to go out there and do the thing that we're doing. But that neuroscience also is involved in your words. And to me, my approach is that you're always communicating with intent. And the intent is always the same. It's an invitation to take one more step with
you. That's clear. I like that a lot. I think most people don't understand that there are various recipes underpinning good communication. So we understand that when we want to build a house, we hire an architect, we hire an engineer. We know that there's a blueprint before the house is built, and it dictates whether or not the roof falls in on your head. Right? But it's the same with effective communication. So people who are excellent at communication study the structure of communication. And then you can make the walls any color you like. You can put marble, you can put tile, you can put concrete, you can put whatever furniture you like in it, but the structure will hold up that communication. So this is why in the book, Turn Words into Wealth, I help break down the recipes for creating $1 million message. So $1 million message is something so valuable, and I would invite everybody to have more than one. But it's an example. An example would be Seth Godin, purple cow. What's that? Or a million songs in your pocket. What's that? Or when Bill Gates said his vision was that there would be a computer in every home, right? So
I still remember, and you don't realize which ones are going to last for you. I remember as a kid watching a commercial, and I'm in Illinois in the US. We have toll roads. Everywhere is a toll road. And I remember watching this commercial that said, imagine paying your toll without slowing down. And that was the biggest, most far-fetched. I could believe the Jetsons before I believed that was going to be a thing. But that's right, the innovation.
That's true. The innovation that happens is amazing. I was on a podcast yesterday with a filmmaker, actually, who had finished his short film. And I asked him, now that the film is done, what was his plan for monetizing it? And he said, I guess we got to figure that out next. And I said, I love to invite people to put the yeast in before they bake the bread. And it's a little hard to add it later. So that really stuck with him. So I just share that with you as well. So what I love to do with people when I'm helping them create their $1 million message, whether that message goes in a speech, whether they're raising capital, whether they're putting it in a book, whether it becomes their brand, is let's find out what's your yeast, what's your special sauce, what is it that drives you, and how will this project be monetized so that we can add that in. For example, I'm really proud of the book Turn Words into Wealth. It is not just a business card. It took me a long time to write. You've got it there.
I have my copy right here with my Post-it notes.
Okay, we'll have to hear a couple pages of Post-it notes that you liked. But my objective was to be of service, to have it be a complete meal. It's an award-winning book. It won Outstanding Nonfiction Book of the Year in its category, which is publishing. So it is a great book. And my objective was for those entrepreneurs or experts who might like help with their book, that they could know that I was a resource to reach out to. So there are examples in the book of my clients who have worked with me, who have crafted their $1 million message and took their business from 1.5 million to $6 million. And I give you all the story of how that happened. That's a valuable story. It's useful in the book, but it also subtly says, hey, if this is you, maybe you'd like to reach out to Aurora and her team at Same Page Publishing, and maybe you'd like to work with them. So that's yeast put into the book.
Yes, it's the intention. And here's a few things that you have going on that I love about this. Number one, for me, my approach to business has to be reverse engineered.
Exactly.
It has to be reverse engineered, because if I'm just staring at the ground, taking the next step, I could land. God only knows, like, where are we going? But if I know where I'm trying to land, now I can reverse engineer the process. The other piece is the fact that helping people and meeting them where they are and helping them the best that you can where they are and inviting people to take more steps with you, these are not mutually exclusive things. You're
exactly
not
right.
doing one or the other.
Exactly right. And what I've found is that you can afford, my experience is I can afford to be as generous as possible. I don't have to withhold any information or anything. I don't have to withhold anything, because some people will listen and they'll take action, and I'm grateful and honored to be of service. And some people will be like, oh, hey, I'd just like to work with you and get the VIP treatment. Exactly. People who want to work with me can go to bookcall.biz and book a business breakthrough call, just like you've got business breakthrough calls set up at conqueryourbusiness.com. And I'd love for anybody who's considering writing a book or speaking on stage or crafting a message to raise capital to just let go of any thought that you need to withhold.
Yes.
My experience is the more generous you are, the more authentic you are. You only get whatever, half an hour to be on a podcast, a half an hour, or maybe a little bit more to be a keynote speaker. People who have the desire to get help and who have the money to pay for getting that VIP help will reach out to you. People who have less resources will want to get your book, because a book is a great value for 20 bucks or so. You can get a decade worth of a person's expertise.
And first of all, absolutely. And then my approach is, my goal is to create a scenario where the person thinks, oh my God, if she gives this for me for free, what will she do if I pay her? It's a credential, like, you're confidence in being generous is a credential.
And it's magnetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to
You know,
shift gears on you for
okay.
a second because I'm dying.
Go ahead, Erin.
Because I have a life that I always call it, I have a very segmented life. And if I look back so many times, I'm like, these things have nothing to do with each other. But now that I'm a little older, okay, I can see the thread. You talked briefly, you mentioned all these different businesses that you have launched, not just jobs that you've had, but businesses that you've launched that on the surface, and maybe underneath as well, truthfully, had nothing to do with each other. I know how I do that and why I do that, but I'm dying to know, because I call like leaving the security of whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a job or a business that you already have, is like jumping off a cliff to do something else. You could get pushed off the cliff or you could jump off the cliff, but either way, you're falling. So, what is it in your world that initiated that, inspired that, and how do you reconcile it with what most people would tell you is a really bad idea?
I've been an entrepreneur almost my whole life. Directly out of college, I did have a job. The first leap was because I was madly in love with my husband, or my husband to be, my fiance, and we just couldn't stand being apart. So we're like, what business can we start with no money? And that was the first leap. And we ended up starting a yacht charter business. Most people use their boats a couple of weeks a year, and the rest of the time they're in the marina. So we're like, okay, what if we rented your boat and took a management fee? So that was a business we could start with no money. He knew about boating and I knew about market feasibility studies because I took honors economics. So I crunched the numbers on that. And that business was not very successful out of the gate. My poor husband had to get a job, keep us afloat, but we managed to stay afloat. And then I asked the $1 million question. I noticed that there were tax benefits for renting real estate where we were living at the time, which was British Columbia, Canada. And the $1 million question I asked myself was, I wonder if we could do that with boats. So we invested $20,000 with lawyers and accountants. We did manage to scrape that together and discovered the answer to that question was yes, those tax benefits were available if we sold brand new boats into our charter fleet. And that grew our business from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business like that. We became the largest yacht dealership in Western Canada. It doubled our profit margins from 12% to 24%. And when a boat is $100,000, an extra 12% makes a big difference. And we didn't do that by gouging the customer, but simply not discounting. Most other brokerages were like, please buy a boat, we'll give it to you for almost free. And then we added more value. We added a tax shelter. We added, here's the charter fleet for you. We'll set the boat up so it's all equipped properly for the charter fleet. You don't have to do anything. It's just turnkey. So every business I've launched always solved a problem for the customer, not for me. I guess it solved it for me too. But I'm always thinking
your husband didn't have to keep the job. But the other thing that you did, show a better understanding of the problem. Right? You had a different, the solution's the solution, but most of the solutions, there aren't a lot of variants, but a better understanding of the problem and an authentic differentiator, because that becomes the credential.
It becomes a credential, and it's because my personality is very creative. That's why I like writing books. But another aspect of creativity can be applied to being an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs solve problems at a profit. So the whole spoken author method, which is what we do at Same Page Publishing, that was launched in 2020 because I was thinking about one of my clients who's still working with me to this day. He's been my client for 15 years, so he loves me. And I was thinking about his problem. He's dyslexic. He's a great speaker, but very challenged with the written word, either reading it or writing it. So I'm like, how can I solve his problem of writing his next book? So I thought about him, I thought about his needs, and I then invented the spoken author method. And so I interviewed him. Every interview was like a podcast episode. It launched his podcast, which he's got a successful podcast now. Actually start talking about doing a TV show now.
Oh, wow.
And it launched his best-selling award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward. but I thought about him and solved his problem and then offered it
Found
to him.
other
He's
people.
that's perfect. And
Right.
then now everybody likes that solution. You don't have to be dyslexic to benefit from talking your book through.
So how do you go from yachts to books?
Circuitously.
And I have the same thing. I've been an assistant construction manager for a property, like they own 9 big fancy high-rise condos in downtown. I used to be able to tell you what size air conditioning you need for what size conference room because of how many BTUs a human puts out. I get it. I get it.
Okay, that was a lot of expertise. Well, I've always wanted to be a writer, and since I was 9 years old, and I've always been writing, but I never really thought that would be a way to earn income. So I've always been writing at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., get up and work on my novel or my screenplay. So I was actually okay, this seems like a miracle. I'm going to share it because it's really, that's so
That's how it
cool.
works.
So
That's
sometimes
inspired action, and the universe will meet you halfway.
I know exactly. So in the yacht sales company, my husband takes a phone call and he's, no, we don't rent boats. No, it doesn't matter if it's a movie. What? John, who's John Badham? So I'm like, wait a minute, time out.
Don't get off the phone.
Don't get off the phone. And it was John Badham, the director of Stakeout, his production manager, called to see if we would rent one of our brand new boats that were not for rent for shooting the movie Bird on a Wire with Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn.
I love that movie.
So the universe brought this opportunity right to my door. And I said, yes, we do rent boats if it's for John Badham.
Your husband's going, when did we start doing that?
And when did we start doing this? And then he's, we're going to hire a skipper and a crew. And I'm like, no, we're not. You're going to skipper it. I'm going to crew. And on that wonderful
I'm
trip,
start
Mel Gibson,
my mixtapes to them. Right?
Exactly. Mel Gibson kissed my cheek. That was cool. Met Goldie Hawn and met John Badham. And the first assistant director, Peter Marshall, later hired me to write a script. My first paid script. It became an award-winning movie starring Jack Palance. Anyway, one thing led to another, both through blessings and curses, because my husband died suddenly. So he was the yachter. We had actually sold our 2 yacht charter and yacht sales businesses. And then I moved on to be head of development for a company in Toronto doing film and television. So I worked in film and television, started my own film and television production company because that's just the kind of person I am.
Right.
We again asked the question, how can we add more value?
Right.
So I found some tax benefits. We raised $5 million and made 8 films. So again, thinking, how can we add more value? How can we add more value? That is the key to successful businesses. But anybody who's listening, here's a simpler question to think about as you are considering maybe shifting your business or leaving a career or starting a new business. And these are the questions I asked myself when I finished my MBA in 2015. So what am I really good at? What do I love to do? It's got to meet both of those criteria. Because I was good at tax shelters, but I was so done with that part of my brain.
It's hard to get motivated. And what can I get behind?
And then the third question is, who is that worth the most to? So this is why I started Same Page Publishing, because I'm really good with words. I'm great with communicating and coaching people. It's easy and natural for me to see the strategic plan, put the yeast in first. I delight in seeing the gold in another person's story and calling that forth. That's easy and natural. And it's one of my superpowers. And I didn't want to do tax shelters. And then who is that worth the most to? It's worth the most to somebody who's already got a business or is already an expert of some or leader in some capacity like yourself, and then wants to take things to the next level. So that's what I do at Same Page Publishing. And that's why we're focused on helping clients create best-selling, award-winning books that make a difference. That's my brand. They got to make a difference too.
Right. That way you can
get behind them. Yeah. I love that language. Yeah.
So another it's not quite as abrupt a shift for you, but the other part of what you do that I want to share it because I'm intrigued by it, because it's the genre that I tend to read as well. I didn't know. I don't know that I've ever really desired to write books,
Mm.
but I do run, I call them scenarios because they're not complete stories. And I didn't know not everybody does that. Made up stories. I run made up scenarios in my head with characters and things like that. When you're waiting in line, when you can't sleep, all of those things. But you have that also side of your business. The other thing we discovered, my degrees in journalism, I had a minor in creative writing,
Oh,
but we quickly learned that Erin's not fluffy. So I didn't do as well. And the journalism, direct to the point, get it done. I was all over that. But
yeah.
tell me how you're incorporating your fiction author as well into your business.
One of the things we talked about before we started recording is I believe it's really important for us to always be growing and learning and expanding and changing. And just because something's working, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do something else as well.
Can we
Because
just stop there for 1 second? Because that is so huge. Just because something's working doesn't mean you should. That's one of the key things in 10 times is easier than 2 times in that book.
yeah,
You have to, are you willing to give up what you might even be best at to take the next leap?
yeah. So I did karma math. I call it karma math. So karma math to me is like when I go to the next level, die, in other words, when I kick the bucket, what impact will I have left on the world? And how could I increase the value that I leave behind? So C.S. Lewis changed my life with the Narnia series and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He changed my life actually later, also with the book A Grief Observed. That was very helpful after my husband died. So that message stuck with me, that a person who was not alive anymore deeply impacted me as a 9-year-old and as a 31-year-old.
Oh, wow.
I already have a business to help adults. And I thought what could really add value to the world is to inspire youth to love reading, as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe inspired me, because I can't think of a more valuable gift. Because if you love reading, pretty soon you start being creative. After that, you start reading nonfiction books. Then you begin to see, oh, you have a problem. There's an answer out there. Why not go to the library and find the answer? And then through that, you become a better communicator. You become more articulate and powerful in your speech, whether it's spoken or written. And that whole domino effect changes
Huge.
your life. It's huge.
Well,
So
I wouldn't, truthfully, I so agree with you because I will tell you, I was a complete juvenile delinquent. I didn't go to school. This was back before computers tracked your every move. So when I was in Chicago public schools, especially in high school, there were certain times of the day where they checked to see if you were there. And if you didn't go to those, they didn't know if you were there or not. So I just didn't go to those. The reason I've done so well is even though I never went to school as a kid, I never stopped reading.
yeah.
I read so much as a little kid, as a teen, like to this day, it's probably at least a book a week, if not more.
Yeah. And that's the recipe for success over your life. I think we should all be lifelong learners. So anyway, I've written this fantasy series. The first book is called Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. And it won the Reader's Choice Award, Best Book for Teens. It won several awards, including the American Fiction Award. And it's a fun, fast-paced fantasy with a young actress from Los Angeles going to London, and then with her brother ending up through a series of misadventures in the multiverse where everything goes terribly wrong, of course. And it's a trilogy. The second book, The Secret Multiverse Academy, this is just the proof copy. It's already written. It's coming out on September 8th, 2024. And the third book, Multiverse Mayhem, will be published shortly thereafter. And I spoke at the local library last week, and it's just so great to see kids light up, have them connect with the story. So I feel that this is another part of me making a difference in the world. It's my karma math calculation. So if I can, the first book's already got something like 30 or 40,000 readers. So that's quite a few. And my intention is that there are themes in the book that are worth talking about for teachers or parents or grandparents to talk about with their kids, such as, what do you think about free speech? such as the love and loyalty between siblings. Yes, your sibling drives you crazy sometimes, but the heroes in this story, both the boy and the girl, at different points stick up for each other. And there's also, you'll like this because you like animals. There's a talking dog,
There
Vito,
you go. You gotta have
who
it.
plays an important role. So people can get the books on Amazon, Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse, or if they go to magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com, they can buy them directly from me and they can see all the great merchandise that we
Oh,
have
cool.
made with
Oh, fun.
all kinds of good stuff.
Fun. I love it. I love the message of the structure around, like it's this wonderful mixture of, we didn't get into the neuroscience, but there's this wonderful structure of how to do it.
Yeah.
But mixed in with the thought of how can I add more value and be the best me, the happiest me, the lightest me. I'm over the bang your head against the wall way of doing anything,
Yeah.
because it doesn't actually get you further. And I don't mean you don't work hard, but
Yeah.
there is a very big difference between creating and trying to force something to happen.
Yeah.
And no matter,
Exactly.
right? And no matter what business you're in, if
I
you
like
approach it from creating instead of forcing, it changes everything.
the snippets of don't make it happen, make it welcome.
Yes.
That's so much lighter, right?
So much lighter. And I think that's a hard shift. I know for me that was a very hard shift, because coming out of the way I grew up, survival mode, you know, that force was life-saving, and learning how to get out of survival mode so you can let it all be easy.
Yeah.
Is not the easiest process, but it's so
amazing. And you teach people how to overcome and release limiting beliefs. But the other part of how the brain works, so you know a lot about how the brain works with limiting beliefs. So the brain also works certain ways with the neuroscience of communication. Real quick, all communication, to be all effective communication, addresses the three fundamental parts of the brain: the ancient croc brain, the reptilian brain, the social midbrain, and then the cerebral cortex, or the intellectual part of somebody. And most well-educated people make the mistake frequently of just going directly trying to talk to the cerebral cortex, but you can't do that. First, you have
our
to
decisions
knock on the door.
Right.
And the croc brain it's there to protect us. Now, a lot of people are wanting to lose weight, but back in the day, using your brain is very expensive. When you're hosting an event, it's very expensive. Your brain is like exhausted by the time you've hosted an event and really listened and coached people and contributed all day long. It's okay. Need to go sleep in a dark room now.
Carbs in bed, carbs in bed. Right?
The croc brain needs to know, is this interesting? Is this worth listening to? That's why right at the beginning of this interview, I said my intention was to help the listeners turn their words into wealth. That is a soundbite for the croc brain, and letting them know, oh, this is a category, this is going to be interesting. Or if they're not interested in turning their words into wealth, then they would have, listened to another one of your shows. The second part of the brain to be sure to address is the social brain. Hundreds of years ago, if you were part of a tribe, you would survive. And if you were outcast, it was a death sentence. So our brain is very sensitive to social cues. So the fact that I'm on your show, you're interviewing me, we're both giving the cue that Aaron is worth talking to, Aurora is worth listening to. That is hitting the social midbrain. Or when I said that Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse was a Reader's Choice Award book, or that Turn Words into Wealth won Outstanding Nonfiction Book of the Year, that's the social midbrain. It can be quick, but address the midbrain. And then the next chunk of information can go to the cerebral cortex. So that can be something like, when you're starting a new business, ask yourself these three questions. What am I really good at? What do I love to do? Who's that worth the most to? All right, so those three bites are more connecting with the cerebral cortex. But then I stop talking so you can say something. So the other thing we need to be aware of is that we can really only listen, fully, deeply listen, as opposed to waiting to talk. We can listen attentively for about 20 minutes, which is why TED Talks are 20 minutes or less. So when you have this understanding of the basic structure of neuroscience, There's lots more tips in the book, Turn Words into Wealth, but that's a beginning. So can you make sure that every time you're speaking, you do those three things? That will already set you head and shoulders above everybody else who's communicating, or just
I
talking
mean,
at length, which is not the same thing as communicating.
and right, and again, I go back to give yourself a break, but don't let yourself off the hook, because we've all seen that where everyone gets 5 minutes and one person gets on and drones on and no one's listening to them. And it's just an insecurity and a confusion and not knowing how to do it better. So it's definitely worth, especially as a business owner, to you get in a business to do the thing the business does because you're good at it, because you love it. Yet, how much energy, effort, resources have you put into being good as a business owner?
And I would say that communicating effectively is in that 20% of things that moves the needle 80%.
100%.
In fact, I give the example that Steve Jobs practiced for 3 weeks how to do an Apple launch. 3 weeks, and he's a busy CEO. You're not as busy as Steve Jobs, whoever is listening. So if he leaned into where to stand, where to pause, what to say, how to articulate it, how to refine it for 3 weeks, then how could you devote more time to learning about how to communicate effectively and practicing how to communicate effectively? Because it's not only about the intellectual knowledge, you've got to rewire your body and brain to do it.
Yeah, I said, don't practice on your prospects. Go find a safe place.
I love all your sound bites. That's so good. Yeah, exactly.
Don't practice. That's what Rotary is for. Don't practice on your prospects. Rotary, they're the nicest humans in the universe. They need speakers. They'll buy you a meal.
Well, that's what I have my clients do. Like, I took my clients to the Banff Media Festival this year, and I had them practice with me beforehand. What are they going to say when they're networking? You get 10 minutes to pitch. So what are you going to say? Let's break it up, have an opportunity for a Q&A, a back and forth. Don't waste, you've only got 10 minutes. You want to be effective. And you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by saying the wrong thing.
Always right.
They
see that all the time.
They got so much better with a bit of practice in the same space.
So if people want to reach out to you, learn how you can help them, learn all of the things, what is the best way for them to find you?
If they go to aurorawinter.com, that's got links to everywhere. Perfect. But if they know that they'd help turning their words into wealth, and I recommend that they go to samepagepublishing.com, and they can get a free Thought Leader Launch Starter library, which includes 5 free videos about how to attract capital, clients, and media coverage. And if they're more interested in the fantasy and stuff for young adults and that kind of fiction fun, then they could just go directly to Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse.com. And I hope they do enjoy reading the books and take advantage of the books. They're such a great way to learn so much.
They're so good. And we will make sure that all the links are in the show notes so that you are literally one click away from everybody just reaching out.
Thank you, Erin. Oh, and I got to know, you have yellow highlighted some of the pages in Turn Words into Wealth. Did you want to share one of the ones? That's
4 phases to launch.
4 phases to launch. There you go.
Because that's what I'm literally, as I am iterating what I'm doing and changing how I'm doing it, I'm always looking. Like, my big thing is the way that I consume this type of content is, even if and this is what I tell people at my events as well, even if you think you've heard it before, lean into it, because you're hearing it from a different person and you're a different person than the last time you heard it. So I don't care how many times someone might have said client avatar or whatever, lean in. And then the second thing is listen for your nugget.
Yeah.
Listen for your nugget. If you pay attention and you just be open, something will pop out at you that can change everything.
See, we're so on the same page. When I host events, I often say, what if the person that you're talking to has the absolute secret that will change your life? So listen to them with that intention.
Yes.
And be the person that's holding the secret for others.
Right. Exactly. It's so much fun. It all just gets so much more fun. Thank you for hanging out with me and sharing all of this with the audience. And
thanks, Erin.
I absolutely love it. Like, to me, time is the one thing you can't it's not the replay, right? It's the only permanent thing. It's the only non-temporary thing. So thank you for giving some of yours to me. So
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.